Alan Wake is one of the best horror games out there and is mainly because of the story. We follow the life of Alan Wake, the main character whose whole life turns upside down when he visits a quiet place for a vacation along with his wife. This is a bizarre and confusing story which somehow keeps the audience engaged throughout the game. So without further ado, hit that subscribe button and let's get started. The story starts off with Alan Wake. He is a massively popular writer who writes crime novels. The main character in his stories is a detective named Alex Casey. People seem to like this character very much and grew attached to it. So after 6 novels with him, when Alan decided to kill him, people didn't really like it. The reason why Alan did it though was because he wanted something new, something fresh, something that he connected with and had fun writing. But unfortunately, 2 years had passed after that novel and Alan had a writer's block, which prevented him from writing new stories. He thought of writing a new book called Departure, a completely new story with new protagonists and new characters. His wife Alice thought that they could use a vacation. This could help Alan with his block and they could walk away from their busy life and take a much needed break. With the help of Barry, Alan's agent and one of his closest friends, Alice booked a nice lodge located on an island in the middle of Cauldron Lake. Before arriving there, Alan had a nightmare about people engulfed in shadow trying to kill him. He was saved by a shining figure in a diving suit who teaches him how to use the light to remove the shadow which would make them vulnerable to physical attacks. Alan then wakes up from his nightmare and they arrive at their destination, Bright Falls. He did not think much about this dream as he had nightmares all throughout his life. When they reach Bright Falls, they are asked to collect the keys for the lodge from a local diner from a man named Carl Stuckey. When Alan arrives at the diner, he sees that he is popular in that small town as well. Even the waitress knew him and was excited by his visit. Alan was a little annoyed because he wanted a nice relaxing trip where no one bothered him. But he persevered and asked about where Stuckey was. He could not find Stuckey but finds a mysterious woman wearing a wedding gown who tells him that Stuckey had fallen ill and asked her to deliver the keys instead. He takes the key as well as a note from the woman and heads down to his lodge. As they were driving away, suddenly we see Stuckey running behind the car with the keys to the lodge. This is where we first find out that something is wrong with the town. When Alan and Alice arrived at their lodge, Alice hid a surprise for Alan in their room. She bought a typewriter hoping that a change in scenery would free up the mind of Alan and could remove the writer's block he's been having for 2 years now. She also arranged for Alan to see a psychologist who specializes in the creative fields and helps writers and artists to clear up any blocks. Hearing this, Alan got really angry. Throughout the story, we can see that Alan was very short-tempered. Although he loved his wife, he was so furious at that moment that he stormed out of the house. That would be short-lived though, as he immediately heard screams of Alice coming from the house. He rushes inside only to find Alice missing. He searches around the house when he sees the horrifying scene of an unknown force pulling her into the lake. Without a second thought, Alan dives in the lake after his wife, which made him black out and have another nightmare. In this nightmare, he sees the same lady in the wedding clothes who was trying to kill him. Alan then wakes up in his car, crashed on the side of the road. He has no memory of how he got there. All he remembers is the dive and then waking up in the middle of nowhere. He tries to reach the gas station and calls the sheriff to get help and help his wife get out of water. As he makes his way through, he encounters the diving suit man and the shadow people, the same ones he saw in his dreams. Thanks to the diving suit man, he knows how to defeat them and so, shining his flashlight and shooting them, he makes his way forward. The mysterious man leaves behind pages of a manuscript named Departure, supposedly written by Alan. It was the exact title which Alan thought of writing after the vacation, but somehow it was already written by him. He had no idea of ever writing it, but the pages depict the exact scenario of what was going on and what is about to happen. On his way, he finds Carl Stuckey engulfed in the same shadow he was fighting. Unfortunately, to protect himself, Alan had to kill him. He finds out that the shadow people are called the Taken and are the town folks possessed by some entity. Finally, after all the dangers, he reaches the gas station. He calls Sheriff Sarah Baker and tells her about his missing wife. But to everyone's surprise, she says that there was no lodge in the middle of the lake. The lodge he was describing drowned decades ago in a volcanic eruption. Baker thinks that the crash might have caused some serious mental issues and takes Alan to the police station. Meanwhile, Barry, Alan's best friend and agent, arrives in Bright Falls in search of Alan because he was lost for 7 days. Yeah, from the time he dove into the lake to the time he crashed his car, 7 days passed and Barry was worried about both Alice and Alan. Alan had written too many crime novels to know that if he talked about his hallucinations of the old lady haunting him and about the diving suit man, no one would ever believe him. So he decided to hide it. Emil Hartman, the psychologist whom Alice arranged to meet with Alan, visits him and asks him to come to his psychiatric ward for some checkups. Alan, as hot-headed as ever, punches him in the face. He also receives a call from the supposed kidnapper of Alice and said that if he ever wanted her back, he would need to come to a nearby national park alone. There, the kidnapper said that he wanted the manuscript pages first and then he would release Alice. They both got into a fight in which Alan punched him so hard that they both fell off a ledge. This gave the kidnapper named Mott the chance to run away. Alan makes his way back to Barry, fighting off more enemies along the way. Mott needed the manuscript pages to release Alice, so Alan had no choice but to find more of the pages. He goes to meet the waitress at the diner who says that she had more of the pages that they were looking for. Having no other leads, they went to her trailer where she lived. She offered them beverages, but before they could realize that something was wrong, they got drugged and went to sleep. Upon waking up, they are met with Officer Nightingale. Alan senses that something was not right with the situation and makes a run for it. And sure enough, Officer Nightingale immediately starts shooting as Alan runs into the forest. The officer chases after him, but he managed to escape. Alan agrees to meet Mott again to deliver the pages of the manuscript in return for Alice to be released safely. When he arrived at the location, he saw that the old lady was there torturing Mott. It is then where Mott revealed that he never had Alice. It was the old lady, the dark presence, who had Alice. Mott and Alan tried to escape the dark presence, but to no avail. A huge dark tornado hits both of them and sends Alan hurling into the Cauldron Lake. He wakes up in a lodge that overlooks that lake. He soon finds out that it's the psychiatric ward of Dr. Hartman. Hartman says that Alan was experiencing a psychotic break which made Alan hallucinate the events. He also says that the reason behind his hallucinations was Alice drowning. But Alan knew better. He knew that these events were not his mind's playing tricks on him. He knew that Alice was still alive and he needed to save her. So he decided to escape the ward. While doing so, he finds out that Hartman was the one who employed the fake kidnapper Mott to lure Alan in. He also learns that Hartman seems to know about the evil entity that's been haunting Alan. Trying to escape, the shadowy force attacked the lodge and Alan was barely able to escape with the help of his good friend Barry. After escaping, Alan and Barry learn more about this entity. It's known as the Dark Presence and is trapped within the Cauldron Lake. It has very special powers by which it can turn literature into reality, and that's why it's after Alan so that he can take his skills of a writer and write a story in which the Dark Presence escapes from the lake and is set free. The reason why the Dark Presence can't just take any other person to write a story is because the story had to be cohesive. It does not work if someone wrote about something that just spawns in or just writes that the dark entity escapes without any reason or justification. Alan and Barry also learned that the Dark Presence previously had tried to escape by manipulating Thomas Zane, a former poet. It took the shape of his dead wife and said that with his writing, Thomas can bring her back. Of course, it was not true, but Thomas believed it. As time went on, he realized the plan of the Dark Presence and resisted its temptations. He wrote the event of a volcanic eruption which sank the island and himself along with it in the lake, forever trapping the entity and his life force. And it's Thomas Zane that we see in the diving suit, the man that's trying to warn us about the entity and helping us through our journey. But the Dark Presence's power grew with time, to the point that now it can even control the townspeople, and it's been doing that ever since Alan arrived in town. During nighttime, Barry and Alan got really drunk, and in that state, Alan remembers something. Remember when Alan lost 1 week of his life after diving into the lake? He remembers where he was all that time. He remembers that the Dark Presence captured him and forced him to write a story named Departure, where the Dark Presence would escape the prison of the Cauldron Lake. Alan obliged to the demands as the entity held Alice in prison and would only release her if he finished the story. Halfway through, Alan realizes that what he was doing was dangerous, and he planned a little getaway in the story by which he escaped from the lake a week later. Officer Nightingale arrests both Barry and Alan. He takes him to the police station where, along with Officer Baker, starts questioning them. The reason for their arrest, as Officer Nightingale puts it, was because of the manuscript pages, which accurately predicts some of the events that's been happening in Bright Falls. During that interrogation, Officer Nightingale was swept away by the power of the entity, and seeing this event makes even Officer Baker believe in the entity's existence. She decides to help Barry and Ellen in an effort to stop whatever this was. They both meet up with Cynthia Weaver, who seems to know a lot about the entity and knows how to stop it. She shows them the clicker, the same one that Alan gifted to his wife Alice, and the same one that Alan's mom gifted him when he was young. Due to Alan's writing, the clicker had the power to stop even the dark presence. So with a plan in mind, Alan goes to the lake. He dives into the lake and meets the dark presence, where he uses the clicker to finally put an end to her. Or did he? Inside the dark place, the place where the dark presence resided, the place under the lake, he sat down in his seat where he started writing the departure and completed it. He wrote of Alice returning back to the real world, but Alan also knew that he had to balance out the outcomes. To make Alice return safely, he had to sacrifice himself, and so as Alice returned to the real world, Alan was trapped there for eternity, or so he thought. How he returned and what happened after is the story of Alan Wake 2 and our next video, so be sure to tune in to that one. That's it for me today. If you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button for more videos like this one. Hope you have a good rest of your day. See you in the next one.